I've spent my whole vocational, professional life with the Christian Bible. So at this point, what is the most important text there that I see? If there was only one line in the entire Bible and all were gone, could I find it in that one line? Put another way, if I only get to give you one sermon in my whole life, what does it have to be about? So this is the best I can give you, and if you don't like it, it's not going to get any better. We've just read Psalm 82. Now if you're thinking, okay, couldn't you at least come up with something from the New Testament? Or a plug for your book on Resurrecting Easter, or something about Pentecost? Psalm from the Old Testament? If you're going to enter the kingdom of God, or accept the Spirit of God, or follow the Son of God, the first thing you better know is the character of the God we're dealing with. No matter how you imagine God, person or mystery, what's the character of this God? Is this the God you'd like to meet in a dark alley? And nowhere more clearly and succinctly can I see a God worth living for, and if ever necessary, worth dying for, than in this one psalm. And thank God it's short, so I can get through the whole thing without keeping you here all evening. Because that's what we're going to do. We're going to unpack the psalm. That's how we're going to do it. One of the reasons I love it is there's no kind of bully pulpit stuff in there. There's so much, I'm the only God, there's only no other God. Yeah, we got it. We got it by Genesis 1. This is, the image here is of God. It's really from the Persian period, so they're imagining the Persian court, where of course you have the king surrounded by all the courtiers. And of course they're all there. This imagines God surrounded by the powers that be, those who run the world. Put more modern language, it's like a CEO sitting down with upper management for a performance review. All right, maybe for a new concept in downsizing, firing upper management. All right, here we go. Now that's the scenario. We're going to hear it again. And it's about judgment. It's a performance review. How are you guys doing running the world? How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice. So I'm going to focus on that one word first. To the weak and the orphan. I want to ask orphans, why are we picking on orphans? Maintain the right. That's another word I want to talk about. The right of the lowly and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Now, let me take the key word justice and explain it in terms of two other words. Right and orphan. Why are those words in there? And in each case I have to do a very powerful distinction. And what we're doing here is finding the key that unlocks the whole Bible. Or put another way, we're listening to the beating heart of the Bible. And if you listen very, very carefully, you can almost hear the beating heart of God. Right. Of course, charity, certainly. Almsgiving, of course. Mercy, compassion. But whoever came up with this idea that the poor have rights? It sounds terribly like entitlements. The right. So where did they get this? Where did these people in the Bible get the idea that everyone has a right to justice? Are we taking something from our own, human rights, civil rights, political rights, and dumping it back into the first century when these people don't know what we're talking about? Where did they get the idea that everyone has a right to a fair share of the stuff in the world? Because it sure ain't evident looking around. They got it in a way so simple it takes your breath away. But it explains the whole Bible. They got it by looking at a well-run family farm. Most of these people, peasant farmers, I think you could call them householders. I almost prefer to call them homesteaders. It's a word we don't use too often. But if you're imagining a person, say a peasant at the time of Jesus, walking across a neighbor's farm, and they're sizing it up pretty good, and they're looking at the fields, and is all the weeding that should be done? Is everything the way it should be on the fields, first of all? Cross the fields into the courtyard, look at the draft animals. Are they well fed? Are they taken care of? Wouldn't it be horrible if they saw some of the draft animals beaten and some of them fed? How would you be judging the householder? Then you move into the house. You look at the children. Are the children well fed, well clothed, well sheltered? Could you imagine the horror if you found half the kids overfed and the others starving? Even if it's a poor house. Is a sick child given special care? And you're appraising, you're watching the householder. What about a pregnant mother? Is she given special concern? If you see all of this, then you praise the name of the householder. Male or female, you say, good job. Now here's what they got. They took that experience, which you hope is the experience of everyone growing up in such a community, and they raised it to heaven, and they said, God is like the householder or homesteader of the world house. So of course, everyone has a right to a fair share. Do you ever think that your children are getting charity or alms if they're taken care of? That's where they got it. So they said, wait a minute, now justice, what's the distinction? We tend to use justice almost exclusively to mean retributive justice, good old punishments. We have the Department of Justice, which is not into distribution at all. It's into retribution. Or the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is about basically sanctions, punishments, of course. But the primary meaning of justice, when you get it as you get it so often in the Bible, without any qualification, is distributive justice. How does everyone get a fair share? A fair share, not an equal share, but a fair share, enough of God's stuff in God's world. So that's the first distinction. Not this retributive justice, but distributive justice, and everyone has a right to it. A right to it. Okay, then we look to the second one. Why does the Bible keep talking about widows, orphans, and resident aliens? Yeah, the poor are always mentioned, of course. Widows, orphans, and resident aliens. If you want to know what the Bible thinks about immigrants, get yourself a good concordance and look up resident aliens and figure out why they're all over the place. These are groups which in that time and place, are susceptible to unfair. They're vulnerable. They're get-at-able. In a patriarchal society, the widow doesn't have the male protection in a patriarchal society. The orphan, meaning again the child without a father, not our sense of no parents, they're vulnerable. You can get away with it. And the resident alien. The resident alien is living in a tribal society. You can shaft that person. Now, I lived most of my life in this country as a resident alien with a green card. I became a citizen only in 2000. My timing was not accidental. I had no problem as a resident alien. I did very well. The only difficulty was I couldn't vote in presidential elections, but since I live in Florida, it made no difference in any case. So we would have to ask, in our societies, Who are the vulnerable ones? Who are the ones who aren't well organized or don't vote, and they can really be shafted by the line item in the budget that nobody will notice till about 6 months from now, when some people will get really hurt. So, a second distinction. The difference between structural and systemic justice or injustice, and personal or individual justice or injustice. Let me exemplify it. Remember that good old parable about the workers in the vineyard? Remember the vineyard owner goes out at 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, brings workers into the vineyard. Come 6 o'clock dusk, they're all going to get paid, and remember, everyone gets the same pay, a silver denarius. Good pay for the day. Everyone gets it. And immediately, for 2,000 years, from Matthew on, we zero in and we want to know, is that fair? We want to talk about individual, personal justice. Is it fair for him to do that to me? Now wait a minute, back off. Jesus was very careful to say that when they went out, I think it was at the 9 o'clock time, the guy found found people standing in the forum, as it were. What are they standing for? They're looking for work. Now wait a minute. This is high season in the vineyards. This should be the time when work's at a premium. Everyone is looking for workers. And these guys are still standing there. I mean, he goes out at 5 o'clock. In case you missed the point, this is Jesus provoking his audience. He says, why stand you here all the day idle? Blaming the victim, in other words. And they say, and I imagine through gritted teeth, because nobody has hired us, you idiot. Now wait a minute. This is Jesus trying to get them, in my language, trying to get his audience to recognize the difference between personal individual justice, which is very important, of course, but also structural systemic injustice. Who set up this system? And isn't it strange how it works out only to the benefit of the vineyard owner? Isn't that marvelous how it works out? These guys are standing at 5 o'clock, high harvest time, when work should be at a premium, but somehow it's so structured that the system means that I don't really have to hustle out at 6 and grab even more people that I want because they'll all be gone by 7. I can saunter out through the day and get just the number I want. Why stand you here all the day idle? Now, I don't know if that worked. I don't know if a single person in Jesus' audience said, wait a minute! Why did you bring that stuff up about standing all the day idle? Don't you know they're looking for work? I don't know. So, justice. Two separate things to distinguish. We're talking about distributive, not retributive justice. And we're talking especially, not exclusively, but especially about systemic, structure injustice. The way you can really get the widow and the orphan and the resident alien. Okay. We're supposed to be running a court up in heaven. Let's get back to it. So, the bill of indictment has been read out. This is the bill of particulars. This is the indictment, the job description, how they're doing. Now, you're expecting them to say, oh, we're so sorry, we were so busy, we'll do much better next time, we will. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk around in darkness. They don't even get it. Even when it's spelled out for them, no excuses, no promises. Who brought up this justice stuff? It's about power. And we're in charge. We will decide what is justice. They walk around in darkness. And now comes the line. This is the line. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. Please think of it. You expect God to say, I'm very angry with you people and I'm going to punish you. God's really good at that throughout the Bible. Or we want to say, the Bible command, it's about the foundations of the earth. It's not about whether God likes this or doesn't like it, the Bible says this or something else. Injustice shakes the foundations of the earth. Which must mean from evolution onwards, justice, that means a fair shake for everyone, is the very foundation of the earth. So, in conclusion, take this one line, write it on our hearts, our minds, our consciences. Write it on our domestic programs and in international relations. Write it on the bathroom mirror, so every bleary-eyed dawn is the first thing we see. Injustice shakes the foundations of the earth.